Hey, hey, hey. Dan, Prof. Dan. Are you going to do your dance?
Wow.
Come on, sing
I
it.
like
Ready?
that. I can't
No,
go.
I
I can't go that high. No, I can't go that high. I can only talk, sing blurred lines, but it's appropriate because of the blurred lines between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department during her tenure as Secretary of State. Washington Post reporting a new set of Hillary Clinton emails that were released by Judicial Watch, of course.
Yeah,
the
'cause-
Shadow Attorney General, the Attorney General's Office, Shadow Department of Justice, show that the new batch includes exchange from July '09 between Clinton Foundation official Douglas Band and Mrs. Carlos Danger for diplomatic passports for himself and two others, saying theirs had lapsed. Miss Abedin writing back, okay, we'll figure it out. Well, that's kind of a curious thing. Mr. Band ultimately went on to found this company called Teneo as well, which had the Clinton Foundation as a client, as well as they were a contributor. Bill Clinton was a client. They had people like Huma Abedin working for Teneo while she was also at the State Department. And it's just the issue of diplomatic passports. There are benefits to diplomatic passports, which is why they're not given out to even State Department staff. They're the privilege of former presidents, perhaps.
So it's reserved for just former presidents?
Well, you have diplomatic passports and diplomats, easy passage at international borders, access to special lines at airports, no tax liability on certain sources of income. Hello. And relaxed visa restrictions. So you don't give them out to public affairs, private citizens in the public affairs or lobbying arena, of course. But that seems to be some of what was afoot. And, of course, we learn new things every day as emails that were attempted to be destroyed are recovered, at least some of them that weren't bleached out. But for more on this, including the sentencing of Guccifer, the Romanian hacker responsible for hacking into some of these email accounts and perhaps funneling that information over to WikiLeaks for subsequent publication. We're happy to be joined again by Catherine Herridge. She's the chief intelligence correspondent for Fox News Channel, of course. Catherine, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't we start with Guccifer? He got 4.5 years, but Romania wants him back.
That's right. He got 52 months. Guccifer's claim to fame is that he is the person who first exposed the use of this ClintonEmail.com account in 2013 after he hacked the personal email of one of Clinton's advisors, Sidney Blumenthal. So it seems somewhat ironic that the hacker who exposed the account gets over 4 years in jail, and the people who use that account and I'm just, it's really quite, remarkable. But in any event, nothing in that story has been usual. He also claimed to us in an interview that he had access to Clinton's server. The FBI director said that there was no evidence to back up that claim. In any event, Guccifer has been cooperating with U.S. agencies and investigators, but Romania wants him back now.
So where does it go from here then? If Romania wants him back?
Even the judge was kind of taken aback by the request, because the way it usually works is when the U.S. government makes a request and they extradite someone, taking a lot of time, effort, and expense, they expect him to be here or she to be here for a while and to serve jail time. In this case, it looks like he may go back immediately to Romania. So all of that just for 3 months here in the U.S. and limited cooperation. It's more than a bit bizarre. But the final point I would say about Guccifer is because of the way his guilty plea was constructed, there's absolutely no mention of the hacking of the Sidney Blumenthal account, and there's no mention about how he exposed the ClintonEmail.com account, which is how the whole ball got rolling here. And so it effectively whitewashes that whole thing. That's what kind of jumps out at me. It's like he never had any connection to this episode whatsoever.
Well, and that ball's still rolling, all the emails that have been discovered and continue to be discovered. And you wrote, along with Pamela Brown, a piece about a kind of revelation in a newly released batch of emails Tell us about one Dennis Chang as that pertains to the blurred lines between the State Department and the Clinton Foundation.
Right. Well, we've heard a lot about some of Clinton's closest aides, but someone who is really very much under the radar, and in fact, it's very hard to even find images of him on the web. The only image we were able to really verify were a couple of pictures from his time at the State Department, where he had a job called Deputy Chief of Protocol, and this is basically the greeter for all the heads of state, and this is an extremely important job because they're the point person for these governments, and Dennis Chang has always had a role either before this job or after this job with the Clinton campaign or with the foundation, being what I would describe as the bag man, like the money man. The Clinton Foundation, he was able to secure donations approaching $250 million. So this job at the State Department made him a key fixer between the foundation and the department and Mrs. Clinton as Secretary of State. We tried to get in touch with him to get a response. We did not get one. But it's just another interesting example of this, I'll say, sort of the overlap between these different entities.
Well, what did these emails show? Like, what was he responsible for doing?
Well, as I said, he was the Deputy Chief of Protocol, and this means that he was greeting heads of state when she was Secretary of State. So he was really the point person for these people. But when you start to look at how many former senior government officials in foreign countries came to participate in the Clinton Foundation or donate money to the Clinton Foundation or steer money towards the Clinton Foundation, it's really remarkable. And he had these existing relationships. I'm not saying there's anything that was illegal about that, but it seemed another example of how his position allowed sort of the exploitation of these relationships to the benefit of many parties.
It's almost with all these emails being released and kind of piecemeal revealed as the State Department releases them per court order, you almost have to put together like the old mob crime family tree to understand all of kind of the interlocking directorates and the connections between different individuals at the center of this Clinton enterprise. And by enterprise, I mean the State Department plus the Clinton Foundation. And perhaps the chief lieutenant, if I can continue the metaphor, is Huma Abedin, who continues to come up in these emails as you described, Mr. Chang, a fixer. The person who either would fix things herself or would route things to be fixed, things that maybe were inappropriate, like the story today in the Wall Street Journal about diplomatic passports for non-diplomatic personnel.
Right. Well, the diplomatic passports, the statement that we have is that these passports in the end were not granted, and that they were part of this effort to free these American journalists who were in North Korea. Nonetheless, there are extremely rigid rules when it comes to the granting of these passports because of the special access and privileges that they provide, and it does seem to be another example of how they were leveraging their position at the State Department to help the foundation. In this particular case, Bill Clinton helped secure the release of the two Americans, which is a very good thing. No one would argue against that. But again, it's this tight, sort of seamless relationship which seems to make people uncomfortable because these are not the kind of favors your average person would be able to get or the kind of access the average person would be able to receive.
Well, and the other thing that the average charity doesn't get away with is not complying with all of the filing requirements for charities and reconciling the books and these sorts of things. And you've had news organizations, including Fox News, of course, as well as kind of independent financial analysts like Charles Ortel, who just look at publicly available documents, and you can't square the circle with donations reported versus donations reported being given versus donations being reported as received. The numbers don't add up. There's no audits. And so it just seems like in this era where transparency is a word that politicians like to throw around, you have a foundation that's not complying with the strictures that regulate C3s. And, what does that say in terms of thinking about a possible president of the United States?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that sort of strikes me in the conversation about the foundation is if you take the position, which many Democrats are taking, that it's not okay for the Clintons to be participants in the foundation if she's elected president, I don't understand why it's okay now or why it was okay when she was secretary, because this is a very senior position as well. I don't understand why going to the highest job in the land really shuts the door on the foundation, but these other positions did not.
And then, Catherine, what do you know about those 30 deleted emails where she used a bleach bit to remove information so no one could ever find it?
Okay, so the FBI investigation was able to recover 14,900 records that they felt were government records. And they provided them to the State Department back in July when the criminal investigation into the mishandling of classified information was closed by the FBI. Among those 14,900 records are as many as 30 that are related to Benghazi. What we don't know is whether these are emails that were deleted and we've never seen them before, or whether they're emails that are already posted online through these different media requests for records. It's not clear to me that these records were deleted using BleachBit. I think when you start doing the math, what you see is that there are some records that were never recovered out of the total, and some records, because there were multiple servers used over the 4 years, depending on where you were in the timeline with the servers, different types of technology were used. So I'm not confident yet that these 14,000 were recovered by the FBI, because BleachBit is even difficult for the FBI because it's like an electronic shredder. It scrambles the information. But in any event, it looks like there may be more Benghazi records, and the worst case scenario would be if some of these records included the word Benghazi or attack or terrorist, or Ansar al-Sharia, one of the groups that was responsible, and it was still deleted, because then it makes you think of the search terms they used to determine what was government business and what was personal were, extremely narrow.
Yeah, and
something like that.
Yeah, and it would you'd have to revisit Jim Comey's intent argument again. All right, she's Catherine Herridge, Chief Intelligence Correspondent for Fox News. Catherine, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.